welcome to tomorrow's Podiatry. I'm Sarah Jane and I'm here with Sarah, and we are bringing you the first of the Journal Club. So welcome to this. I wanted to just do a quick introduction to what the Journal Club's going to be, and then Sarah's going to go on about tell us a little bit about the aims of what we're going to be doing in these monthly sessions. So the Journal Club, what we're really looking to do is demystify research. That's it. So we're going to be taking you on a series of things that we'll discuss in a wee minute. But before we crack on, what I want to do is just introduce myself, and then Sarah's going to introduce her. So I am Sarah Jane Walls. I'm the owner of the Rehab Hub in Glasgow. I'm a podiatrist, and I have a master's in public health and an interest in research. My interest in research sit MSK sports medicine, but also rheumatology and biomechanics. So that's where mine sits. And Sarah, welcome. Hello.
Thanks. I'm Sarah O'Connell. I am owner of Momentum Foot and Ankle Specialists in Galway in Ireland, and I am a lecturer in podiatric medicine in the University of Galway. And like that, my interests would mainly be orthotic therapy, sports injuries, biomechanics. But I suppose with this show, we hope to kind of look at research in other areas that we're not as comfortable with. So looking forward to joining you, Sarah Jane. And yeah, really looking forward to starting this Journal Club.
That should be fab. So we're going to go over some of the aims, Sarah. So that's your job. I'm going to hand that to you. What's our aims here?
I suppose our main aim is that we want to remove the barriers for both students and for podiatrists that they feel when it comes to accessing, understanding or discussing research. I suppose we're really trying to highlight the practicality of using research in our daily practice, both public and private. And also, we're just really looking at how can we introduce current concepts into, as I said, into our daily podiatry, but also how can we help podiatrists develop and know it's okay to have their own point of view and not agree with all research. And that's where we progress as a profession. So we've loads we want to cover, unless there's any other aims, SJ, I've missed.
No, I think that's it. It's about that demystifying this thing, isn't it? That it sometimes just feels out of reach to when you're a clinician on the ground working. It's just there seems to be these barriers that we'll discuss through this series. But no, that's perfect, Sarah. I'm now going to go into a little bit about how we plan to structure these sessions, so the journey that we're hoping to take you through. So what we thought, discussions with myself and Sarah, really just researching this, I suppose. There we go. We looked at tonight we want to discuss, first and foremost, why bother reading papers at all? Like, just why bother? So that's what we're going to discuss tonight. Our next session, we're then looking at how to actually search. Like, where do you even go and what are you looking at, and discuss a little bit about maybe the quality of the papers there. So we'll flesh that out a little bit, but we want to keep this really a very entry level and debunk maybe some of the kind of myths around this, keep it really, really accessible no matter where you're starting from. And then the kind of next session, we're looking about getting your bearings, like when you're actually looking at a paper, when you've found some papers, you've found some things you're interested in, like, what is it all about? What's it telling you? How do you read it? Like, how do you even know if it's like what it's saying? What does that actually mean? And then the next session, we're looking at quality. We're always about, is it good quality? Is it an RCT? Should we have, should this be a systematic review? What's better? What's not? So what does all that actually mean? And kind of demystifying a bit of that as well. And then from there, the next session is all about statistics and mathematics. Everybody goes, oh no. But actually, it's fabulous. So it really is, it's not as scary as maybe that makes you sound. So we're hopefully going to demystify and get in your head around stats and actually, what is that? What does that mean? What does that actually tell you? And then the next one that we've got, and the final one, is applying evidence to your practice. So now that you've went away and looked at all this stuff, and what does that actually help you do? So I hope that excites you a little bit. And yeah, hopefully we can get you a little bit excited about research. What do you think of all that, Sarah? Like, obviously we could have pulled this together. What are you thinking about that?
Yeah, like I suppose our main thing that we spoke about is how do we keep it simple? Because like that, you've already said a couple of things like RCT, a systematic review. Even when you just say the word statistics, I think we all get nightmares from our undergraduate degrees, or you're already worried about it if you're starting a research project. And it's just really, I suppose, how can we break that down, get rid of that scared feeling, and make it, just as we've said a few times, more accessible, easy to talk about. And the whole idea here is that we want things to be simplified and practical. And we won't, as you said earlier, be using jargon or fancy language. It's how can we make things easier to understand for ourselves, but for everyone else. So if there are any questions or anything like that, or suggestions, please throw them in the comment section.
Well done, Zena. We should have said that. You can absolutely ask questions. So you're going to go on, Zena, and talk about the importance of research, aren't you?
Yeah, I loved like when we first started talking about this, you were like, okay, it should be like, why do we bother? Or, you know, if you're not in college, why do you, or uni, as you say over there, why would we bother with research? Where does it come in? And I suppose the main thing is that by using research in the right way, we can really improve our patient care. And I know you're going, wait, how does that connect? And I suppose through research, we're able to look at, you know, new and different treatment plans, and creating really patient-centered treatment plans, which we now know through evidence that involving the patient will help with compliance. And even things like new treatments or referrals, or when we're outside of our scope. And I suppose the other thing about when we look at the importance of research is we use research as part of making our clinical decisions. So it's not that we're just going, oh yeah, well, this paper says this, so we have to act like this. It's we look at it and we include it as part of our treatment, you know, how we create our treatment plans. So that's the main thing. I mean, as that's all we want to do is improve our patients' outcomes and our treatment plans. If you want to add anything else, Sarah Jane?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, you've covered the majority of where, I suppose, where my head is. It also, I think, professionally, when you really start kind of bringing research and evidence into your practice, it really does make you a better clinician. It does. It helps you. And it's all about that curiosity. I think that's the key to research itself. If you have a curious mind, that really is all it takes to research. You just need to be curious. You just need to ask, ask questions. Don't just accept something because you sat in a lecture, or you read that book, or somebody told you, or you were sitting in the bar, or you did a course on Udemy, or whatever it is. Be curious. That's it. Just ask questions. And it's like, if you even just think back and, why is research important? If we didn't have research, we'd still be probably in the Stone Ages, baking fire with wood, and we wouldn't have looked out to the sky and thought, what are those shiny lights up there? And we wouldn't know space existed, or we wouldn't know smoking wasn't bad for us. All of these just things that we take for granted. If we didn't have research, we would become ignorant and unaware of the things around us. And taking that into your clinical practice, we're not saying that you're ignorant and unaware in your practice. I know that most of us wouldn't ever consider ourselves to be that way, but unless you're curious about what you're doing, or you're asking yourself, is this the best treatment plan for this patient? Is this the best? What are the options that are out there? What does the evidence say? And if you're not curious and asking those questions, then you're becoming that. You're becoming unaware. You're not aware of what's out there. But at the same time, it is a bit daunting. Like, where do you look? How do you know what's good? How do you know all of that stuff? So hopefully during this, we'll debunk a lot of that.
And even just watching you describing it and how you bring it into clinic, not only does it keep your clinical practice exciting, and it also, like, the fact that you keep developing, you keep reading new things, like, it does keep you interested in the profession. Otherwise, you're doing the exact same thing you've done every day. And the other side of it is it really does empower you and build up your confidence as well, because like that, you have that, I was just going to say evidence-based practice, but you'll go through that, but you have that bit of backup, you have that bit of confidence, and you're able to tailor that then to your patient experience. So, I mean, and you can see from you there that like it does bring that bit of excitement. I know we sound like nerds, but I'm telling you, it just keeps developing your practice and you just get that bit more excited.
Oh, like totally. I know there'll be people watching this that will be in practice. You might be in practice a long time. It might be a short period of time. You might be a new grad. You might have been practicing 30 years. It can get very boring if you're just doing the same old, same old, same old, and you'll just be stuck in a rut. And honestly, just get a little bit curious. Just get a little bit uncomfortable. Just a little bit. That's all we're asking. Get a little bit uncomfortable and a little bit curious, and you'll be amazed at where it'll go. Really well. And as you said, Sarah, that confidence as well. And actually, I know what I'm doing here is the best that I can offer that patient. And if not, you know where to send them or what to do. So yeah, right. We alluded a little bit to the evidence-based practice. That's usually where everybody does the kind of yawn look, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so evidence-based medicine, evidence-based practice. You know, what does that actually even mean? I think we were kind of pondering this, right? What does it mean? And there's actually a few definitions because I did look it up, did do a wee bit of reading around. So does it mean just going on to Google or Google Scholar or some other database and reading papers? Does it? Well, no, it unfortunately doesn't. It's essentially looking at how the research that's out there. So good quality research. We'll not get into the details of that right now, but we're looking at the good quality research that's out there that is using some sort of mathematical numbers in there. You know, there's definitely going to be some sort of study or patients being put through something or some sort of something's been done where they've gathered some sort of data. And we're looking at the risks, the benefits, and the harms of what we are choosing to do. So if we've got a patient and we're deciding to do a particular treatment, is that the right treatment for that patient, right? Have we looked at the risks, the benefits, and the harms based on good, high quality evidence that's out there? So it helps inform your clinical decision making. It helps you inform your diagnosis, and it helps you inform any further investigations or referrals on, or your management of your individual patients. So that's a whole big wordy explanation there. But essentially it's taking the body of evidence that's out there, a good evidence base, and using that to help you make the best decisions for that patient in front of you. That's what it allows you to do. So the risks, the benefits, the harms, your clinical decision making, your diagnosis, any further investigation, and your management of that patient. Sarah, you can add to that if you like. Yeah.
Well, like, I think I just love how you kept saying informs. Okay. So the main thing is that just because evidence says you do this does not mean that you blanket cover, you do this for every single patient. And I think that's why with the term evidence-based practice, I think that, and even myself, I was using it as a buzzword, but I didn't really get the nitty-gritty of it. But the whole idea of evidence-based practice is that you bring in evidence with your experience, with your expertise, with the individual patient and their own set of variables, and you're using that evidence and all of that other stuff, all those other tools that you have to create the best management plan for that person. So again, that's why I loved how you kept saying informs, because it's not that evidence-based practice or the evidence out there is the one tool. Yeah, it's not the one tool, or that if you're not using evidence, you're missing it, you're not able to create a management plan. But it just means that your clinical decision, whatever that is, you've used all of these different tools and made a unique management plan for that patient. So as you can then imagine, now you have all of these factors that you've included, and now you can be really confident with that management plan.
Exactly. And it's also, here's something that you hear quite a lot, or you see quite a lot, right? So, we're both in private practice. So we have companies selling us stuff. they'll produce research based on things they want to sell us. Of course they will. And this is what, as clinicians, some of us will do as well. It's almost like we go out looking for specific research to prove something we have in our head.
Yeah.
That's not what you don't want to be doing that. So it's about being curious, but entering whatever you're looking for. So say, for example, you want to find out what the best verruca treatments are. It's not about going in with an idea of this is the best treatment. It's about, let's read what's out there. Let's look at what's out there and almost try and go to it with an unbiased, undecision mind. You're looking at the good, the bad, the ugly. And you're not just looking at the stuff you want to look at, because it's all you're doing there is it's almost like making a decision by press cutting. You're basically just cherry picking what you want to read. We've also got, if you think about how else we make decisions, Sarah, like, for example, when we're at conference, right? We will maybe have some round the table discussions with our colleagues, and we'll discuss various different things we've read, they've read, courses we've been on, and we'll bring our expertise round that table. But again, just because your lecturer from whatever has got X number of experience, just because they've said that that's the way that it should be done, doesn't mean that that is what should be done. And it's about taking, always taking that kind of critical mind and always thinking, always asking questions. And I think we alluded earlier that nothing is ever black or white, nothing's ever right or wrong. There's always questions to be asked. And then from all of the conversations you have, the papers you read, the experience you've got, all of this, the tools that you have, you then make that best decision. But I think also what we have to look at as well is that sometimes we make decisions based on cost. So cost minimalisation. So a lot of the time, if you're working in possibly the NHS, different protocols will be in place for certain treatments based on that is the budget for that type of condition. So for example, some treatments that we make, maybe nothing to do with podiatry, but other conditions, they may only offer certain things, not because that's what the evidence shows is the best. It's just they're choosing that based on cost. So it's your decision and what you put into practice. You're bringing in the research, but it isn't always, I suppose, like a right or wrong. There is no right or wrong. It's using what's out there and making the best with the tools that you have at your resources. So if you know, for example, you're going to do some tendon work, we know that research shows there's various different ways, but something like shockwave would help. But if you don't have access to shockwave and that patient's not got the resources to have that, does that mean you do nothing? So it's about utilising what you do have and taking the evidence that you've got and taking the tools and the resources that you've got and making that kind of decision and building out your plan from there. Does that make sense? I know I've kind of went on.
No, definitely. Because like that, it's like when you say go out and you get to go to this really fancy clinic and it has all the bells and whistles and all of the things that are seen as gold standard, but you know that maybe next week you're going into a clinic that doesn't have that, but you then have to, you might have less tools in your toolbox, but it doesn't mean you're not going to still use evidence-based practice, but you also are bringing in that factor of resources. But on the flip side, especially within the diabetic population, a lot of the budgets that have been put forward, or I suppose with us, like budgets for Diabetes Ireland that we would see have been granted because research has shown how podiatric intervention helps with that patient group. So there's the positives and negatives of resources as well. But it's just so interesting that, and again, we find it interesting, hopefully you will too, but it's just that, so there's like pros and cons to your evidence, and as well as that, it's not the be all end all, but what part of it can you know, what part of it warrants a change in your treatment plan, either big or small, and why does that stand out to you? And how do you create your own opinion? And what you take from a paper and what I take from a paper might be different, and that's okay, and we'll discuss it. And then we're both critically analyzing something, having a really good conversation about it, and then we might even take away something else. So I think that's the way we should be with research. And I just think that, especially myself, when I started going to conferences, I used to just regurgitate what other people would say, because I just thought, well, they've done the research, or they read loads of papers. But the more that, I suppose, the more confident I've gotten with reading my own research papers, not that I've done them, but ones that I've read, I've started to formulate my own opinion and have the confidence to go, okay, I see where you're coming from, but I feel this way, and this is how we progress as a profession.
Totally. It's not about just agreeing, and
No.
but it's also not about disagreeing or you know,
Falling
telling
out.
people they're wrong. It's totally not that. It's just about just having that, not taking it face value, just being curious. I think the word I would take away is just be curious, and you know, no research is perfect, and that there is no right, there is no absolutes. Science is, you know, forever. There isn't. I suppose that's it. It's science isn't absolute, and without us having these inquiring minds in research, and without us evaluating our own practice objectively, we can't advance. We can't advance our discipline. We can't advance podiatry. And to be honest, we'll never, ever be taken seriously. And being involved in any kind of research, whether you're just reading yourself, you will learn loads of skills that will absolutely make you a better clinician. And it will allow you to really think critically around any condition and situation that you find yourself in. It really will give you confidence, more than you maybe realise. But our kind of goal is to just get you curious and get you stepping into a wee bit of a discomfort zone.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where we grow. And we know that if we stay in our comfort zone, we're not going to
No.
personally grow. So, not, you know, your professional development, and then our profession as well won't grow. And I suppose my main thing is that I initially did not have a GRA for research. I'll say that straight. And GRA is Irish for love, by the way. But what happened was, when I initially started, right, okay, I'm doing a master's, I need to jump right into it. And I suppose the first thing that happened to me was, first I was terrified, because I realized that the amount of things that we don't know, because you know, when you're a student, you're first going, oh, black and white, you treat this way. So-and-so told me I do this way. And I think
you almost want the instructions book, don't you? You just want the recipe. Yeah, you want spoon fed. It's like, oh, just tell me what I need to do. But
yeah, and I think when I just started getting into research, I realized, oh my God, there's so much we don't know. And I had a bit of a panic, a little bit of a panic. And then I kind of took a step back and went, okay, now I'm aware of what we don't know, but what we do know, I need to hold on to and run with it. And so that's the way I look at it now. How can we look at what do we know, and how can we bring that into our clinical practice, keep it practical, keep it simple, and kind of wave out the jargon and stuff just to make it more accessible.
Yeah, I think that a bit like yourself, I always had an interest in research, but it wasn't, I think it sometimes seems, it's like this mystifying thing. How do you get into it, or how do you get involved in it? And it's really not as hard as you would think. You just.
I found this on the web.
Oh, said he found this on the web.
But very fitting.
Yeah, exactly. You just get started. But for me, the more my kind of input in that area would be, the more I learned, the more I researched, the more I learned, or I suppose the more I knew, the more I learned. I didn't know. The more I learned, I was like, oh my God, I know nothing. Yeah. Oh, it's scary, because you realise that, like, you start really questioning everything you do, but that actually is a good place to be, when you question what you're doing.
Exactly. And I do think, and I suppose I know we've kind of started jumping in and all of that, but I think yes, it is. You'll get those moments where you're like, oh my God, I did that or whichever. But you're learning from it, you're developing from it. And as well as that, I do think a lot of the language around research can be a barrier itself. So during this, we will be, explaining what different terms mean and things like that. Because even, for example, like I have a couple of research students myself at the moment, and every step they're kind of going, oh God, what am I doing? But when they actually jump in, they're flying it. So it's just that initial like bit of support will kind of, help push you on a little bit, and then you can get involved in research yourselves.
I think that was it. So I think what we were going to finish up on was, what do we not like talking about? So we've kind of went into that, haven't we? Like, we don't really like talking about evidence base, and it just makes us feel a bit uncomfortable. It's all jargon. It's all this weird terminology that it's like this mystic ball that nobody really knows what it means. And then you've got all these stats and what's important, what's not, like, how do you know if that's, what are you looking at and what does that actually mean? So as Sarah said there, hopefully through the course of these little sessions, we just debunk, just keep it simple. What does that actually mean? So that you can actually, in your own practice, know where to look, know what you're looking for, know how to search well. We're planning to show you how to search, and not just going to Dr. Google and see what comes up. So have a wee bit of thought process behind that. And then what does that all mean? How does that maybe make a wee bit of an impact in your practice? Maybe just get you thinking a little bit differently. And who knows where that'll snowball to? Who knows where that will go? Exciting.
Yeah. Totally agree. That's the plan anyways.
The next session we are looking at, so this one was all about why reading papers at all. So hopefully, I think we've answered that question. What do you think, Sarah?
Yeah, I can't think of anything else really.
I think we've answered it. Let us know if we haven't.
Your students probably like, because I have to for my research module or research methods and design or something, but hopefully
not an acceptable answer. Because I just have to, because you told me I needed to. And then on the next session, what we're going to do is we're going to maybe go through a little bit about some of the databases and how to search. So me and Sarah are going to plan that out and keep it very light. So it's not going to, hopefully we're not going to get too heavy. Well, we're not going to get heavy. We're going to keep it light and show you where do you start? How do you start searching? What are you searching for? Yeah. Fab.
Sounds good.
Yay! Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're watching this in the replay, please still, feel free to comment, feel free to share. Michael will be putting up the dates and times of the next shows, but it is monthly. And the next one is all going to be about databases and how to search, how to get started. Any closing things you want to say, Sarah?
No, just that it's really going to be a journey. So the whole idea is bringing you through. And if there are any questions or things you want us to cover, we'd greatly appreciate any feedback.
Oh, thanks very much. Thanks, everybody. See you all next month.
Bye.
Bye.